Matt Hayes, Tottenham blog, and to today's pre-game live stream. Of course, today we're facing Sheffield United in the Premier League. I'm going to be quickly going through the team lineups and stuff, and then we'll be taking your questions and comments. So to get straight into it, we've made two changes from the team that, of course, beat Red Star Belgrade in Serbia on Wednesday night. The two changes are at fullback. It is Serge Aurier and Ben Davies coming in for Juan Foyth and Danny Rose. So to run through the team in full, it's of course Paulo Gazzaniga in goals. We have Serge Aurier starting in right back. The two in centre back, which for me was a bit of a surprise. It's still Eric Dyer and Davinson Sanchez. I don't even think Jan Vertonghen is on the bench. It's just Toby Alderweireld on the bench with Juan Foyth, or other defensive option. So no Jan Vertonghen in the squad at all. Of course, he's injured with Eric Lamela and Hugo Lloris, of course. Then Ben Davies starting in left back. And from then on, it is the exact same. We have Tanguy Ndombele and Moussa Sissoko playing in the holding midfield roles, with Giovanni Lo Celso, Dele Alli and Heung-min Son all playing behind Harry Kane. So given the performance that we did see during the week in Serbia, I'm absolutely delighted to see such a similar team to what we had there. I wouldn't say Foyth and Rose were pivotal to the good performance on Wednesday, so it's not the worst thing in the world that those two changes are made. I'll keep coming back to it. I am not a fan of Serge Aurier, and I personally don't feel he deserves to be in the team, and I think players like Juan Foyth and Kyle Walker-Peters do. They do deserve to be in that squad more than other people. And as Stephen Flynn is saying, Aurier is a walking red card, and he's gotten a few for us in his time at the club. I mean, I think it was his debut against West Ham, he actually picked up a red card as well. So look, it's not exactly the player we want to see in that starting 11, but I think we do have to be, given what Poch has done this season, I think we do have to be kind of relieved that we do have 9 of the same players starting. And after my last video, it was something I didn't even realise. It was Paranormal Frank, who's just joining the stream here. He said, we haven't named the same team in 93 games. So it's a really, really long time to be making, obviously, changes every single game. But very similar to the team that beat Red Star on Wednesday. And it's great Giovanni Lo Celso getting his first run in the team. You know, we have, of course, making his debut on Wednesday, playing 86 minutes, which was great because he hasn't played much time for us so far. And the fact now that he was able to play 86 minutes and 3 days later start against Sheffield United, it shows he must be close to full fitness. So getting him and Ndombele in the team consistently, and now Sessegnon is starting to get into the mix as well. A really good cameo role on Wednesday. Running through the bench in full there, it is Michel Vorm, Toby Alderweireld, Juan Foyth, Harry Winks, Ryan Sessegnon, Christian Eriksen and Lucas Moura. So that's a really strong bench. You know, obviously Lucas, Sessegnon, Winks and Alderweireld, players who, you know, could probably get into our first team. Eriksen, a player who has a lot of quality but just hasn't been showing it lately. That's a really strong bench, and as I've been saying, getting into this part of the season is usually where we do so well. Perhaps getting our squad back to full strength now, this could be a really, really good part of the season for us. And let's quickly welcome It's Your Guy, Matthew Hogg, Steve, Ratty welcome, Albin as well, Stephen Flynn, Paranormal Frank, Porav Bat, welcome along to the stream. Porav saying, let's just hope that players don't injure themselves after the international break, which is, of course, going to be a big week for us next week because of how often we do pick up injuries over the international break. I think it's the last one until March, so you know, getting into a really, really hectic part of the season. If we can get through the next 2 weeks without any injuries, going into a part of the season that could be some relatively easy fixtures for us. We have West Ham away from home when we come back after the break, which, you know, is always going to be a tough fixture. It's their cup final, I suppose. And then we've got Olympiacos at home and Bournemouth at home, 2 games that we really should be winning. This could be a really good part of the season for us. Alexander, don't want Aurier to start, but I'm not going to moan. On the whole, I'm happy with the team. Otherwise, ecstatic that he has started Dyer and Lo Celso makes a point. And I fully agree with you there. Aurier, not the player I want to see in the team, but, you know, there's nothing we can do about it, I suppose. Stephen Flynn saying, nice early goal for Spurs, and Spurs win 2-0. I think this is probably the first time in quite a while that I've been relatively confident going into a game that we are going to get the win. Maybe the home game against Red Star Belgrade was a bit different, but in terms of a Premier League fixture, it's been quite a while since I've been this confident going into a game that we can get a victory. And of course, it's partly to do with the performance on Wednesday, but now the fact that Pochettino has kept, as Mark says, he's kept the spine of the team and buzzing with that team. I really do feel as though we can get a result today. Now, that's not to underestimate the quality that Sheffield United have. We quickly run through their starting 11. They usually go for a 3-5-2 with their wing backs doing a whole lot of work, but the one thing that certainly needs to be mentioned about this Sheffield United team is their overlapping centre-backs, which seems like an absolutely absurd thing to even dream of. But Chris Wilder, he's been doing it from the League One all the way up now to the Premier League. It's usually John Egan and Jack O'Connell on the left and right side who just bomb up and down like normal fullbacks would. So it's Dean Henderson in goal, of course, on loan from Manchester United, has been a fantastic player for them this season. The three centre-backs are Jack O'Connell, Chris Basham and John Egan, playing in the fullback roles with George Baldock on the right and Enda Stevens on the left. John Fleck, John Lundstrom and Oliver Norwood playing in the middle of the park, and David McGoldrick and Lys Mousset up front. A good strong team. Their last fixture last week, they beat Burnley by 3-0 at home. John Lundstrom getting on the score sheet with a couple in that one. Now Sheffield United are on a really good run of form. You only have to look at the Premier League table to realise that they are, I think, 6th at the moment. They've the best defence in the league so far this season. They've only conceded 8 goals in their 11 games, which is level with Leicester. Liverpool have conceded 9, City have conceded 10. So they really are really good at the back. And they've conceded, I think, 2 in their last 6 games. And that includes 2 games against Liverpool and Arsenal. Unfortunately losing 1-0 to Liverpool with an uncharacteristic mistake from the goalkeeper. And of course keeping a clean sheet against Arsenal when they beat them 1-0 at Bramall Lane. So they're certainly not to be underestimated. But I do think that we can get the win in this one. Paranormal Frank saying we really need a win at home today. The Ora Guardian, hey Matt, how are you? I'm good, looking forward to the game. As I said, getting a bit optimistic. Steve saying score predictions for today's game, everyone. I'm going for 4-0 to Spurs, Harry with a brace and Lo Celso and Son. So make sure to get your score predictions into the chat. A 4-0 will be a really great result and a good statement as well. As I said, playing against a team who are so solid defensively, and that's been part of their makeup, coming all the way from the League One to the Premier League. And even when they have been down in those lower divisions, they've fancied these games against the big teams. You know, the last time we played them was in the Capital One Cup semi-final back in 2015, and we needed a last-minute goal from Christian Eriksen to actually get us through that one. We beat them 1-0 in the home leg. Andros Townsend scoring from the penalty spot, and going away to Bramall Lane. We took a lead earlier in the first half. It was a brilliant free kick from Christian Eriksen, which seems like a long time ago, the performances he's been showing. But they came back with 2 goals from Che Adams in the second half. Adams is now, of course, at Southampton. Even when they were down in the League One, they really gave us a good game. And of course, making it to the semi-final of the Capital One Cup in itself was a great achievement. But you know, it will be a tough game today, but it just feels as though this is one that we really will get over the line, and we'll get the victory. Matthew Hogg saying Aurier, Son, Davis to come off the bench, Aurier for Foyth, Son for Lucas, and Davis for Ryan Sessegnon. Alan Harry saying, hi Matt, a win today is essential. We know Sheffield United will pressure us, so it comes down to our character now. And that's exactly it, because, you know, looking at the Premier League table, Sheffield United have been the better team this season. You know, it's there in the numbers, and they will fancy this game today because they know how inconsistent we've been this season, and I'm sure they'll be aware of the performances that we've had in the last few weeks against the 2 against Red Star, and a bit in that first half against Liverpool when we did play close to what we know we can play, but we've been really inconsistent. And Sheffield United, who've gotten big results this season, they came from 2-0 down to draw at Stamford Bridge. Really, really unlucky, as I mentioned, to lose to Liverpool, and they went out and beat Arsenal a couple of weeks ago. They'll really fancy this one. John Hickey saying it's a must win today. We can do it. We can do it. Come on, you Spurs. That's the attitude we need to have. We need to really feel as though we can get this one over the line. Mark says the Sheffield United team is championship level players. Shows what a great job their manager is doing, and that's so true. I mean, looking at that 11. There's a few players there who have played in the Premier League in the past. Looking at Lys Mousset, who's of course played with Bournemouth, Dean Henderson on loan from Man United at the moment. They do have some good players on that side, but it's similar to what Daniel Farke is doing at Norwich, but the difference is it's working for Chris Wilder. They both kind of kept the base of their team together and tried to kind of continue what they were doing in the last few years, because you can look at what Fulham did last year. They came up to the Premier League, spent over £100 million, you know, brought in players like Jean-Michel Seri, who was attracting interest from some of the top teams in Europe, bringing in Andre Schürrle, who was a massive signing at the time, and it really didn't work for them. And Sheffield United have proved, you know, you don't need the money, you don't need to make these big name signings, just keep your team together and things will happen for you. And it was working kind of for Norwich at the start of the season, but since that victory against Man City, they've really suffered with their form. But it's without a doubt unbelievably impressive what Chris Wilder is doing at Sheffield United. And as someone who was a Sheffield United fan all the way up through his childhood, I'm sure it means more to him than it would to a lot of other managers, and that's really showing with the team that he's actually put together there at the club. Getting a few of your score predictions in here. The Ora Guardian saying 2-0 to Spurs, Mark saying 3-1, Frank saying 2-1, Matthew Hogg saying 3-2, and welcome Jay Spurs as well. So real confidence here in the chat that we're going to win this game. I'm quickly going to run through some of the key stats for this one. obviously they don't have too much of a bearing on the game, and it's always interesting to kind of see the John as well saying going 2-1 to Spurs. It's always interesting to see the kind of the history between the two sides and the history in the fixture. Now Tottenham are unbeaten in 4 home games against Sheffield United in all competitions, winning 3 and drawing 1 since a 1-0 loss at White Hart Lane in November 1991. So over the last 28 years we haven't played them that much, but when we do play them we tend to get a result. The home side has always scored at least twice and has never lost in the 6 previous Premier League meetings between Tottenham and Sheffield United, the home team winning 4 and drawing 2. So that's a very interesting one. The home team has never lost in this fixture, which you would imagine would carry on today, but the scoring at least twice might be a bit difficult with the defensive solidity that this Sheffield United team does possess. Tottenham are winless in 4 Premier League games, drawing 2 and losing 2, having last had a longer run earlier this year over February and March, when we went 5 games without a win. In 2017 and 2018 combined, the Lily Whites only had 1 winless run of 4+ Premier League games. So that's just kind of driving home the poor form that we have been on this calendar year. It would be absolutely dreadful if we went 5 games without a win twice in the 1 year. Hopefully we don't, of course. Sheffield United are winless in their last 17 Premier League games in London, drawing 6 and losing 11 since beating Chelsea 2-1 in October of 1992. So quite a long time since they have actually won in London. On top of that, Yorkshire sides have lost 10 of their last 12 visits to Tottenham in the Premier League, winning 1 and drawing 1. And that win was Hull beating us 1-0 in October 2008. I think it was Giovanni who scored the goal that day. And finally, Sheffield United have lost just 1 away league game in 2019, winning 6 and drawing 9. No team in the top 4 tiers of English football have lost fewer. Liverpool have also lost just 1, which was of course away to Man City in January. So that's a really, really daunting stat there. They've only lost 1 away league game in 2019, which, given they've just been promoted to the Premier League, is a sensational stat. And of course, as I mentioned, they've already visited Stamford Bridge. It's really impressive what they are doing there, and I think as a 6th in the Premier League table, I'm not entirely sure where they are at the moment, but they're right up there, obviously a bit behind the top 4. There's a massive gap there between the top 4 and the rest of the league. They are sitting 6th at the moment, level on points with Bournemouth, just 1 point behind Arsenal. And as I said, only conceding 8 goals in 11 games is a quite fantastic record. I was running through the chat again. We have Pourav saying Gazaniga is doing an excellent job after Hugo's injury. Really a future star to look for. And it's really encouraging to see him coming through and playing like this. We know he's a few years younger than Hugo Lloris, but the performance against Liverpool, despite the defeat, he made something like 14 saves, which is a Premier League record this season. And that one against Red Star as well. He wasn't asked to do much, but he made some really, really good saves. We're really lucky that we have had him to deputise for Lloris after that awful injury. We did get an update on Lloris's injury as well. Initially, the medical team had decided they weren't going to look to operate on it, but over the last month or so, the elbow hasn't really recovered that much, and they said it was still unstable. So Hugo Lloris did undergo surgery late this week. But that's not expected to affect the timescale of his return, and he will be back in training in early 2020 as well. Just a bit of an update there. He has had surgery on the elbow. Jace saying this weird Poch never changed his team that much. Frank, today's about character. They could press. We have to be prepared and on top of our game. Mohammed saying 1-0 or 2-1 to Sheffield United. So that's the first prediction of a defeat coming through there. Anthony saying, do you think Lo Celso will start? I really hope Ericsson doesn't. As Jace said, Lo Celso is starting. I'll quickly run through that team again. Only 2 changes from the game against Red Star on Wednesday. Paulo Gazzaniga is starting in goal. The 2 changes are at fullbacks, with Serge Aurier and Ben Davis stepping in for Danny Rose and Juan Foyth. Eric Dyer and Davinson Sanchez keep their partnership in centre-back, which I was a bit surprised with, because I did think they were a bit vulnerable in that game on Wednesday, and they were kind of opened up a bit by that Red Star team, more than you would expect them to be, mainly down the central channels, which is quite worrying for going into a Premier League game now. It's Moussa Sissoko and Tanguy and Dembele playing in the holding midfield positions, and then Dele Alli, Heung-min Son and Giovanni Lo Celso playing in that trio behind the striker. And I expect it to be very similar to the way those 3 played on Wednesday, with Lo Celso predominantly on the right, Son on the left, and Dele Alli playing down the middle. We started to see a bit from Dele Alli, those amazing runs that he made when he first broke into this team. Even if they are just decoy runs, his movement is really clever, and we're starting to see that a bit more, and that could be really important in unlocking the Sheffield United defence today. Even though they will have an extra centre-back back there playing the 3-5-2, he could be very important to unlocking them today. Darren saying 3-0 win today. This looks like the most committed group of players we've picked this season. Absolutely true. Jimmy Page saying, I put $50 on Spurs to win. I feel like that might be a mistake. It might be, as Ben is saying, that is risky. Ben also saying, I reckon we will either surprise them or edge it by 1 goal. Matthew Hogg saying, I know it's a while away, but what do you think our home kit next season will look like? I imagine it'll be fairly similar to what we have now. The red AIA, which is the one thing we don't want, will probably be on it as well. It's never much kind of... the kits don't usually vary too much. Anthony saying, just seeing our lineup, I'm really happy who's playing. Just the right back I think is wrong, which I agree with. Jimmy, if Poch gets the lineup right, I'm confident. Welcome Silver Surfer. Steve saying Gazaniga has been our best player since he has been in the side, which is true. As I mentioned, those performances against Liverpool and Red Star, he has been absolutely exceptional since coming in. And no, it's not much of a surprise. You know, he played, I think, his first 7 games that he played with us over last season and the season before, he only conceded 2 goals, and that included a Carabao Cup game at the Emirates when he won 2-0 last year. He really has done well since stepping into the team, and it's no surprise that Michel Vorm was shipped out last summer, even though he has been brought back in now. Gazaniga certainly made himself the second name behind Lloris and completely wiped Vorm out of the question. Poor F saying, I read something about Andre Onana in talks for a potential transfer in January. Is it correct? I'm not too sure about that one. You know, again, coming up to the transfer window, there's going to be countless rumours about Tottenham, and Andre Onana is one that has been thrown around quite a bit. But I think that's more to do with Ajax's tendency to sell rather than our tendency to buy, because you know they are a selling team. Onana, if we could get him, obviously would be an exceptional signing, and he's one that I'd love to see join Tottenham along with a few other Ajax players, mainly Hakim Ziyech, Donny van de Beek, David Neres. But Onana, look, he's a really exciting future keeper. I think he's only 20 years of age, 19 or 20. 23 actually, he's a bit older than I thought. But as a potential future goalkeeper, he's certainly someone that would be great to get in. Silver Surfer saying, is Poch still experimenting? No signs of a settled starting 11, and where does Harry Winks fit into this team? That's actually a good point, but I think the experimentation is kind of starting to die down now. I've kind of been talking a bit about how he needs to pick 2 holding midfielders to play in there. And personally, I would have preferred that to have been Ndombele and Winks, but it looks now like maybe he's settled on Ndombele and Sissoko, and it's Winks' job now to kind of fight his way back into the team. But only 2 changes from the team on Wednesday, given that obviously it was a quick turnover flying back from Serbia on Wednesday night and now playing on the Saturday afternoon. I think it's a good sign that we have only had 2 changes, and you know, the fullback changes is something that we do typically get from Pochettino. You know, those first few seasons it was Walker and Trippier on one side, Rose and Davis on the other. So there's not too much of a surprise there. I am, as a lot of you are, just a bit unhappy that Aurier has found his way back into the team. The Aura Guardian saying Dyer is probably better as a centre-back now, as after his injuries he has become even slower. Jimmy saying Foyth played well, I thought. I think Foyth did have a decent game on Wednesday, but I don't think the fullbacks were particularly important to the way that we played. And as I mentioned, you know, it is a typical Pochettino thing to change the fullbacks. So I wouldn't say Foyth losing his place is too much to be concerned about. It's the guy who's coming in. And, you know, there's still no Kyle Walker-Peters to be seen anywhere near the squad. You know, we're not being told he's injured. It's a really confusing one. The Liga video saying, in my opinion, Foyth is way better since he started as a cam. He is so much better and so much more creative than Aurier. Yeah, he has been better, I think, in right back you're mentioning there. He's playing there for Argentina as well, which I think is something that does need to be noted, because you know they do have a really strong side, and he's maybe a player who's being looked at more for the future rather than the immediate important games. But he is, since playing right back, he has been much better than Serge Aurier, which to be honest isn't hard. But you know, I think he's just a bit maybe too inexperienced or a bit too vulnerable to be playing in that centre back role. Because remember his debut. Was it his debut? One of his first Premier League appearances against Wolves, he gave away 2 penalties playing in centre-back. So maybe right-back is where he belongs. Steve saying, Ndombele and Sissoko are a solid pairing, and they're a really powerful duo in there. And maybe that is what we need more than the kind of silky football that we do see from Harry Winks. Just 2 powerful players, you know, who'll really grab the game by the scruff of the neck and, you know, do everything it takes to kind of get us on the front foot. And maybe that is where Winks is losing out at the moment, because he will be more of a kind of a footballer than kind of a powerhouse in that middle of the park. Poor F saying that hoodie's cool, where'd you buy it? I got this in the Tottenham Stadium, the old club shop a few years ago. Frank saying Dyer at centre back makes me nervous. Yeah, he wasn't too encouraging in there on Wednesday alongside Davinson Sanchez. But maybe this is Pochettino finally looking to the future, because he has been saying that he's not going to make his decisions based on things going on off the pitch, such as, you know, players having 1 year left on their contract, or Eriksen earlier in the summer saying that he wants to leave the club. But I can't remember the last time we had 2 games in a week and not one of Vertonghen, Alderweireld and Eriksen started the game. You know, Alderweireld and Eriksen on the bench for both, Vertonghen injured, but, you know, that can mean anything. So maybe he is now looking more towards the future rather than playing the players who probably quality-wise are the best players, but on form and given what they're showing on the pitch at the moment aren't. J Spurs, should we sell Kyle Walker-Peters? I personally don't think so. I really think he's a good player for the future. When he does play, he plays well, and he's just struggling to get into the team at the moment, which may be because of the injury he had earlier in the season. He mightn't be at full fitness, but it is confusing and kind of concerning that he's not getting into the team. Ben saying, do you think our team is better or worse now than it was 2 years ago? Are we missing Kyle Walker and Trippier? I think our team 2 years ago was one of the best Tottenham teams, definitely the best Tottenham team I've ever seen. That last year at White Hart Lane, obviously Kyle Walker and Trippier were really important parts of that, but it's a lot more than just those two that has changed since then. And, you know, I would say we're going to find it hard to get back to that level that we were at then without investing a whole lot of money into the squad, which it doesn't feel like it is going to happen. But I would say that team 2 years ago was better than what we have now. J Spurs saying, for the sake of his development as a player with Kyle Walker-Peters, I'd say loan him out before sell him. Matthew Hogg saying we should sell him. To be fair, Dyer was probably the better centre-back against Red Star, as Sanchez is still full of problems which he needs to sort out. Jimmy Page saying, to be fair, Aurier hasn't been too bad this season, it's just his lack of discipline that worries me, which I think has always been the concern with him. Even when he was at PSG, he had a massive falling out with the manager, which I think was actually Unai Emery at the time. But yeah, his discipline it's absolutely awful. As a defender, that is one of the key things that you need, but he gets sent off too much, he gives away too many penalties. You know, he's an accident waiting to happen, and it has been some at really important parts of games where he has messed up. You know, playing Real Madrid at the Bernabeu in the Champions League in 2017, we went 1-0 up, a lucky own goal from Rafael Varane, and we go down the other way and he gives away a needless penalty. Giving away that penalty against Liverpool last week, you know, when we were fighting through a really tough period, went 1-0 up against Southampton and he got himself sent off. Playing West Ham even on his debut, we were 3-0 up then, a really good victory in the derby, and he got himself sent off and we nearly threw that lead away. It just happens too often with him, and I really don't know how he keeps finding his way back into the team, but look, we have to trust Pochettino knows what he's doing. Anthony Gonzalez saying, our midfield is sick now, sell Eriksen and sort out our back four. The Aura Guardian, if Aurier was a smart player, he could be one of the best as he has the skill. Alexander saying, harsh on Dyer. On 2 of the occasions we got opened up, it was Sanchez who was out of position, but other than those 2 or 3 chances, he was solid. Silver Surfer saying, last match Everton won, Tottenham won was probably the worst Spurs match I've ever seen, hoping for a revival today. Jimmy saying, totally agree, if Aurier could send in some good crosses and stop getting yellow cards, he could be great. Paranormal Frank saying, 2016-17 was our best team, full pressing, scary team to play against. Matthew Hogg, I'm going to watch the game now, bye bye. Yeah, I'm going to leave the stream there, guys. Kick off in about 5 minutes. I'm looking forward to this one. I do think we can get the victory. I'm going to go with a 2-1 win, because, you know, I don't think we're going to blow them away with, you know, like we did maybe against Palace, getting all those goals in the first half. But I do think we can beat them. You know, they're a tough side. They're a really, really solid side. But you know, I think we can get the victory. Why are you so bad at fantasy football? Yeah, no, I gave up on that after a couple of weeks. I've always started bad with that. I don't know what it is. Tommy Harrison, how did you watch the game? It's actually live on Premier Sports here in Ireland, so I'm getting a bit lucky. We always get one of the 3 o'clock kickoffs, and it is Tottenham this weekend. Anthony, I have to watch the game. And yeah, look, that's it. Thank you to everyone who has been watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff if you haven't already. Let's hope we can go out and get the victory against Sheffield United. And as always, thanks for watching.